Hey everyone, it's Miss Queen Crypto, and I am back again for another episode of Friday Block Talk here on the Embily channel. Very happy to be here. If you couldn't tell, I am still on vacation, still in Bali, except I'm in the jungle now instead of the beach. So I have a waterfall kind of near me, so really exciting. Today, as you listen to me talk, you'll also get to hear the soothing sounds of water falling. So maybe that'll make your viewing experience even better. But I'm going to try and not be eaten alive out here, so I apologize if there are any sudden cuts from me screaming about bugs. But we've had a couple of incidents already with the whole bug situation here. It's my first time being in a jungle, so that's been a very, very interesting experience. But I'm not here to talk about the jungle today. I'm actually here to talk about FUD. So with that, let's get into it. FUD is one of those terms that I am sure you have heard it if you've been on crypto Twitter for longer than a week. I know I've seen a lot of it, and the first time I saw it, it's not necessarily an acronym that is super user-friendly. Like, it's not like LOL where you kind of understand what it means upon first glance. FUD was one of those things that I actually had to look up on Urban Dictionary, and in case I'm your Urban Dictionary in this case, FUD stands for fear, uncertainty, and doubt. And so when we're talking about FUD in regards to markets and crypto, we're talking about the general sentiment of the market and how like the people are viewing the market and viewing buying and viewing everything going on. So I'm bringing this up now because we are in a time of pretty severe FUD. We just hit a low that's lower than the last cycle's previous high. And so that's very upsetting for a lot of people to break that pattern. And you see so many articles about how Bitcoin's crashing to zero, like this is it for Bitcoin. And I just wanted to kind of talk about FUD in the midst of all of this because I think, again, I recently tweeted about this, but I think perspective is something that is so important to be keeping with us around these times. Like, for me, the price of Bitcoin doesn't really matter about it tanking because I was not planning on selling my Bitcoin anytime in the near future. I'm fortunate in the fact that the money that I have invested in Bitcoin, I do not need to live my life on a day-to-day basis. And so I'm fortunate that I'm allowed to just be able to keep it there and not have to worry about it. I understand that that's a very privileged mindset and a very privileged point that I have. And I understand that not everyone has that same ability. So I have great sympathy for everyone when we're talking about crashing markets really being a detriment to people. And I know I've said this before, but I think stuff like that is really, really important to like hone in on. Like, not everyone can hodl. Some people use, like, they don't have cash flow necessarily that they're constantly buying with. Like, they have a pot and that's what they're living off of. So it's important to remember that not everyone has the same circumstances as you, and just because something isn't a big deal for one person, it can be a very, very big issue for another person. So now I'll get into the part where I start actually talking about a little bit of FUD fun. So we're going to do a little bit of a time hop, travel back in time a bit, and we're going to go to 1929, October. I think you know where I'm headed with this, but that is the date and time frame of Black Tuesday, the stock market crash, which is probably one of the biggest economic collapses our country has seen. Obviously adjusted for inflation. People argue that right now we're in like times that are worse than the stock market crash, but that's not the point. Today we're going to talk about what I learned in history class. So when I first learned of this term FUD, that actually is one of the first things I thought about, the stock market crash, because I don't know the last time you brushed up on your stock market crash history or funsies, but people were like flooding the banks trying to pull out all of their money. Like, it started off as something that wasn't necessarily the biggest deal. It wasn't a great day by any means, but it wasn't like a totally catastrophic event, but it was the fear in all of the people that caused people to be like, I need to take my money out of stocks immediately. And suddenly everything was crashing. Everything was going to zero. There were such catastrophic implications from just the fear alone. And then people went to the banks. They didn't feel safe with their money in the banks. And so they were going to the banks and trying to take out all their money. But that's not really how banks work, which I know banks are a sore subject here. However, people in 1929 did not have Bitcoin. So They were going to the banks. The banks didn't have their money because that's not how banks work. They were loaning it out to other people at the time. So people didn't have their money. Banks were being forced to close, basically. They were going bankrupt. The banks literally didn't have any money. And so people who had their money in the banks didn't have that anymore. It was totally gone because the bank that once held it for them didn't have anything left. So people ended up having absolutely nothing at the end of it. And there wasn't even anything of real economic distress that happened. There wasn't anything industrially that was the cause of this. There were no shortages. There were no issues with production. It was simply the fear that really ruined so many people's lives and led to the Great Depression, a time of really, really harsh circumstances for so many Americans. And we only were really pulled out of from a war, which I understand that wars are pretty good for the economy, sadly, but I think it's pretty awful that the war is what really helped our country, because I'm personally of an anti-war mindset. I don't care how naive that is, but I think that we've progressed past that. Sorry if this is getting a little bit too political for you, but it was all fear that drove that. There weren't really any actual market conditions that were leading to that. And I feel like that's such an important thing to learn from, and obviously we haven't, because here we are, prices keep going down further and further and further, and a lot of it is driven by fear, a lot of it is driven by uncertainty, and a lot of it is driven by doubt. And that's exactly what we're here to talk about today, that FUD. Hopefully you know what I'm talking about when I say the fear and greed index. I get it. I don't think I follow the account on Twitter. However, I definitely see it on my timeline, especially when there's like some crazy price action going on. But it's a little like odometer, basically. And on one side is fear and the other side is greed. And it's supposed to be a good indicator on like that sentiment that I was talking about. And recently I saw that the fear and greed indicator was like all the way over here. And I was like, oh, damn, that's not great for us. But I've also seen it all the way on the other end of the spectrum. And I do think it's really, really important to discuss how that sentiment can really affect the market. I think crypto in particular is something really, really special with that, because so many of the interactions that crypto is built around are online and are public. So it's even easier to like see cracks forming and to get really... It's so much more instantaneous, because you can see a tweet and then you can make up your mind just like that. You don't have to wait for the news to come out. You don't have to wait to hear it from the grapevine. It's all right in front of you. And I think that obviously is wonderful in so many ways. And the fastness at which we can receive information is incredible. But there are also downsides and there are also dangers. And I just think it's like micro trends. I don't think I've talked about micro trends before. Maybe I think I tried to last week, but it's just everything is so much rapid fire at this point. Like, it's honestly a little bit scary. And so we can see these crazy price action driven by sentiment, maybe not originally driven by sentiment, but amplified by sentiment. I think that FUD can greatly amplify a price drop, and we have seen that so many times, but this just being one of the most extreme ones. And I think that happens on the other side of the spectrum too. When we have crazy price action moving all the way up, and then you see it, it's like a snowball effect kind of thing, where all of that positive sentiment and people talking about it, like, let's pump it, let's keep going to the moon, that can really amplify and snowball until we have something that might not actually be indicative of the price or where the price should necessarily be. And just like I've learned throughout my vacation here, it's all about balance. When you have that crazy price action, it's like a pendulum. There are corrections all the time, and when you go to one extreme, you're going to end up at the other extreme, and you just kind of have to come to expect it. It's the name of the game. You can never really feel secure in the market here. That's why we always say, like, you can't invest more than you're willing to lose, because at the end of the day, it's an investment, it's a gamble, there's always some risk involved, and it sucks, but for every winner there's a loser, and that's very, very upsetting, but that's part of it. And so it's important to keep FUD in check, whether it's your own fear, uncertainty, and doubt, or the FUD you hear from the community that's really starting to like wear on you, it's important to just be aware that that's not the whole picture, and don't let that convince you to sell or convince you to buy when the time might not be right for you. You have to trust yourself a little bit and understand that what happens happens. There's like, you can't make everything perfect. You can't have it all go your way all the time. So with that, I'm gonna end the video there. Thank you so much for watching. We've got one more video in Bali, I'm pretty sure, and then I'll be back home in Florida. So hopefully I can find another beautiful scenery like this for the next video, and hopefully it's not like the last one, but you never know. It's a risk, it's a gamble, we'll see. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to like it, and if you want to see more videos, please subscribe to the Embily channel. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to see more content from me in particular, follow me on Twitter at Miss Queen Crypto. And with that, I'll see you guys next week. Bye!